Hello, I'm Joel Baird, the General Manager of Missoula Community Access Television. Thanks for joining us on our ongoing series of interviews with candidates for Missoula City Council this fall 2015. We're going to talk to a candidate for Ward 1, Heidi West, who's in the studio. Thanks, Heidi.
Hi, thanks for having me.
You're most welcome. Now, you know I gave everyone the same questions, and I intended them really to be, just an opportunity for you to talk about your campaign. And here's your very first question. What motivates you to run for office?
Well, there's a number of things that motivated me to run. So last year, about a year ago, the whole White Pine Sash cleanup proposal came out, and it was a very empowering experience getting, having our community organize and write letters and address the DQ and ask them for a better cleanup, which they did adjust their plan, and 10 acres are being cleaned up to a residential level at this point.
Which is different. So people who don't know, the Department of Environmental Quality, there was a place right by city shops where there was the White Pine Sash. They made windows and whatnot, and they made a big mess.
Right.
So when they left, the soil was contaminated, and there's different levels of cleanup. One could be industrial, where nobody's ever going to live there. Oh, that'll do. And another was residential, and that's what the residents wanted.
Right. And it's a 40-acre site, half of which is developed already in commercial use, and then 20 acres are undeveloped. And 10 acres of that at this point are being cleaned up to residential level, which is, I think, a really good victory for the neighborhood. In addition to that, I've been on our neighborhood council for the past 2 years. I'm not entirely sure, actually.
The time goes by so fast.
It goes
They're so
fast.
fun, the neighborhood counts.
They are. And it's an experience I really enjoy. It's a process I really enjoy. So we meet as a leadership team once a month, and then I'm also the community forum rep. So I go and present what we're working on, and also see presentations by city employees on what's happening. And the mayor came and talked to us about the budget, and it's just a really great process. And also I feel like we have a lot of good platforms for citizens to get involved in their local government and help make decisions. And I'd like to be more of a part of that. So
you got your feet wet, so to speak, in community organizing and being a member of the neighborhood council.
Yeah, and I've gone to city council and spoken in support of, or asked for their help in with the White Pine Sash issue, and then also to ask them for a budget line item for the Moon Randolph homestead. So
oh, sure.
Yeah, so it's just a great process, and they're very respectful, and I always feel like that they take into consideration what what citizens ask and say, and what the arguments are for things or against things.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, you may have answered number 2 in this process, because number 2 is, why do you think you are qualified? So I don't know if there's more you want to add to your experience.
Well, so I actually went to school for political science.
Oh, my stars. I didn't know that.
Yeah, so when I was a freshman in college, I was reading, the American government textbook that was required, and I think the idea of being, of local government especially, was what drew me into political science. By the end of my, career as a student, it was a little disillusioning. I worked on several campaigns in Oklahoma, and I think national politics are a lot harder to influence, and that local politics are really, less about politics and more about actually getting things done for your community based on your community's needs and values. Why else do I think I'm qualified? I think so for the past almost 6 years, I've been a stay-at-home mom, but what that's allowed me to do is to volunteer for a lot of organizations with or without my kids,
right.
And really make a lot of connections within the community. And I think there are a lot of ways nonprofits and the business sector and local government can work together to really maximize their impact. So.
Okay. Here's question 3. What will your priorities be if you are elected?
There's a couple of things. There's a couple of things pertaining to the north side. specific to White Pine Sash. It's part of a new urban renewal district, and I'd like to explore options for getting the remainder of that undeveloped 10 acres to see if there's some way maybe the city and some other folks can collaborate to maybe get the rest of that site cleaned up. It's the only large chunk of undeveloped land that's on the north side that, is really close to the neighborhood. That would be a great place, for a higher use potential.
Yeah.
It's close to downtown. You can get places quickly, close to public transportation. And I also think that a lot of folks use that corridor from Scott Street to North Reserve for commuting on bikes especially, and there's no shoulders. It's a really tight road, and there's a lot of big truck traffic that goes through there. So if we could figure out a way to make it safer for folks that are not in motorized vehicles, that would be great. And I also think that, so Ward 1 is pretty diverse. We've got the Rattlesnake,
Right.
downtown, north side, some of the west side actually.
Yeah, Jack Rowan was telling us when he did his interview about how the district had changed, and there's different areas of the city included now in Ward 1 that hadn't been before.
Right, yeah. So there's the little sliver between Toole Street and then Broadway out to Russell that's now in Ward 1. And what that means is that I think Ward 1 probably sees a lot of the effects of the chronically inebriated transient population, maybe more so than others.
Yeah, because there was all that business about moving the POV from downtown
and the POV is
to West Broadway.
So, and I really think that we should expedite the process for having some sort of housing accessible to that portion of our population, just on a very basic human dignity level. And I think it would minimize a lot of negative interactions between, say, like business owners or just, folks walking around and folks that are on the streets. It would give them a place to go.
And do you mean by that, too, researching more into, like, the United Way has been working on that 10-year plan to end homelessness?
Yeah, just, and I read the report that they, I think, presented to City Council.
They presented that to everybody.
I'm trying to remember if they came to community forum. I can't remember. Been to too many meetings lately.
Right.
But yeah, I did read it, and I do think that that's something would be something really positive for our community. And whatever we can do to help to make it happen, I think we should really look into.
Here's your number 4. What does the future of Missoula look like to you?
That's a good one. Well, as I mentioned before, I've been doing research on a property down on Front Street, all the way back to the first land patent that gave the land to the first, I guess, white settlers under
Oh my
the
goodness. So
Morrill
is this
Act.
East and West Front Street both?
So it's land on East Front Street.
Okay.
About 160 acres was given to an individual named Cyrus McQuirk, and then he subdivided it, and I'm trying to track the ownership of a specific property. But what that's really made me think about is, what things have been built in the past and what that are still here, and so, I'm not sure exactly when the building was built that I'm looking at, but probably in the 1880s.
It's not the old Mercantile, and it's
No,
not that
it's a
one.
residential house. It's a residential house. But what it really makes me think about is how much, what we build now and how long it's going to last in the future. And, to make sure that things we build and invest in are structures that are going to be around and useful in 140 years. And a lot of the buildings that were built back then are still around. They're beautiful, and they're in our downtown, and they've been retrofitted to meet whatever fire codes and sprinklers, but they're still beautiful and they're still useful, and probably will be for a really long time.
So your future use, sometimes you hear a structure proposed to say this is a 150-year building that the architects took into account the idea that this building should last. If you put all that money into it, it's not something to say, 50 years, just tear it down.
Like, I think everything, especially if the city is going to be a part, investing in some sort of way into a structure or a development in our community. It should be built to last, and it should be also, it should be efficient. It should be flexible enough to maybe meet a different need in the future. But yeah, we should definitely make sure it's there for the long term.
I gotcha. Okay, here's your closing feud. You can talk about anything you want. What haven't we touched upon that you would like to say?
That's a broad one. I'm trying to think. I guess the thing that I would like to see happen more, I think we could be more effective at communicating things the city does. I know that property taxes are a big issue, especially in my ward this time around. And I think a big way of maybe making people feel more comfortable about where their property taxes go is to more effectively communicate, where it comes from and also what it's being spent on. And, I've gotten on the internet and looked at our city budget, and it's long and it's a big Excel spreadsheet, and it's very confusing. And I think something we could do better as a city is just to, simplify that visual information in a way that, you can say, this proportion of my property taxes goes towards fire, and this proportion goes towards, police, and then this proportion goes to parks, because all of that infrastructure is hugely important, and it really enhances the quality of our lives. And I think, just as my personal experience living in Missoula, we moved here in 2009 when my husband took a term as an AmeriCorps Vista for MUD. And I had a 14-month-old when we moved up here, and I couldn't find a daycare spot, and I couldn't find a job. It was one of those,
Yeah.
which one comes first? And so I just decided to stay home. And because Missoula is such an amazing community with so many resources that are available to anyone across any economic sector, our lives were rich and fulfilling, and I never felt disadvantaged by the fact that we were living on an AmeriCorps stipend.
Yeah, it was pretty poor.
Oh, yeah, it was challenging, but, it was, and I think that is something that's really important about Missoula, and also allows the greatest opportunity for just everyone to have, live up to their highest potential. And if we weren't, we're a community that invests in its citizens, and I think that's something to be really proud of. So.
Great.
Thank you.
Yes, Heidi, thank you for taking the time, and good luck in your race.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for dropping in on us for our interviews with candidates for City Council in the fall of 2015. We just want to make sure, too, that if you are of voting age, your mail-in ballot should be coming to your house soon. If it doesn't, please contact Missoula County Elections Office to figure out if you're registered, to figure out if you've moved, and because they can't forward those mail-in ballots. Well, for MCAT, I'm Joel Baird. Thanks for watching.